What if the oldest way of asking questions, isn't a pure hunt for truth, but a precise art of steering attention through doubt? What if the Socratic method, celebrated as a tool for awakening reason, also carries a quiet derailment, a shadow side that can bend minds instead of freeing them? The premise of the Socratic method is simple on the surface. Ask questions until the ground shifts under your own feet. In a classroom, a seminar, or a quiet study group, a single probing question can turn certainty into curiosity and curiosity into humility. Yet beneath that surface, a different current runs, one of pressure, tempo, and expectation. The method doesn't just reveal ignorance. It can reveal who gets to define what counts as knowledge, who is allowed to doubt, and who must defend their beliefs at every turn. Take a familiar scene, a circle of students, each armed with a notebook, a line of reasoning, and a growing sense that every answer must be carefully calibrated to prove something to the teacher, to peers, to themselves. The question arrives, not as an invitation to wander, but as a hand on a lifeboat they're told to hold steady. You're taught to translate raw uncertainty into a disciplined, presentable form. The darkness hides in the unspoken discipline, the habit of turning every pause into an argument, every hesitation into a fault, every alternative into a flaw in your character. This is not an accusation against philosophy. The problem is the psychology of questioning when wielded with idealized purity. Socrates didn't just loosen minds. He trained them to watch their own mental guards. But guards can become gates. And gates, if closed too often, trap more than they protect. When a dialogue becomes a duel where the aim isn't understanding, but victory, the method mutates into a performance of intellect. The room sings with the rhythm of dialectic. But behind the rhythm sits a subtle pressure. Produce a coherent portrait of yourself, or risk appearing inconsistent, unsure, or unworthy of the conversation. The dark twist becomes clearer when you shift from classroom to world. The method is portable. It travels into politics, journalism, corporate culture, even intimate relationships. In these arenas, the questions aren't just about ideas, they're about status, control, and the shape of belief itself. A facilitator can guide inquiry toward a shared destination, or steer it toward a preferred conclusion while cloaked in the noble robes of inquiry. The line between genuine doubt and strategic doubt blurs, and the power to decide what counts as a good question grows heavy in the hands of a few. Consider the paradox. Socratic questioning aims to strip away the false self we wear in daily life, to reveal who we truly are by exposing the gaps in our thinking. Yet the same technique can become a mirror that someone else holds, a mirror whose reflection reinforces their authority. If a question is crafted to hinge on a single assumption, it can bend the entire conversation toward one frame of reality, and anyone who resists is labeled irrational, resistant to reason, or emotionally fragile. The very tool designed to cultivate autonomy can become a mechanism of conformity. Sound harsh? It is a dark note, but not a fatal one. The antidote is as old as the method: awareness and consent. Awareness means recognizing when a question is being used to guide the outcome rather than uncover truth, and naming the bias that infiltrates the dialogue, the desire to be seen as clever, to win, to settle a dispute with elegance rather than clarity. Consent means agreeing on the ground rules before a conversation begins. If one party feels crushed by a question or coerced into a conclusion, the dialogue collapses into catechism, not curiosity. The turning point in this story is not in shaming the questioner, but in reclaiming responsibility for how questions shape minds. The true strength of the Socratic method isn't its ability to force agreement. It's its capacity to reveal how fragile our certainties can be when challenged with a robust dialogue. Invites not just a final answer, but a continued process of examination. It invites a willingness to be wrong for a moment, Because the moment of honest correction is the seed of durable understanding. Let me offer a concrete image. A lantern held up inside a cave of assumptions. The lantern doesn't banish the darkness. It reveals a few walls we didn't know existed. Some walls are mirrors, and some are windows. In the best use of dialectic, we learn to distinguish between the reflection that flatters and the insight that awakens. We learn to slow the pace when a question becomes a weapon, and accelerate when it becomes a bridge. The method, in its ideal, is invitation to a shared ascent, not a solitary climb to the summit of being right. Yet the shadow persists. In modern classrooms and boardrooms, the ring of a Socratic drill can become the cadence of a ritual that marks insiders and outsiders. The questions are meticulously designed to align with a narrative the group already favors. The ending is less about truth and more about belonging. In such spaces, curiosity becomes performative, a show of intellect to prove loyalty to a doctrine rather than a pursuit of understanding. When people are trained to see doubt as a failure, the appeal of genuine inquiry withers, and the habit of reflexive certainty hardens. So what remains as a guardrail? First, transparency about intent. Who benefits from the questions, and what is the shared goal of the dialogue? Second, humility as a tool, not a posture. A question should be a beacon, not a verdict. Third, a rotation of roles, questioner and respondent, so no one holds exclusive sway over the terrain of truth. A moment to step back and ask, have we learned more, or just proven who we are to each other? This is not an indictment of the method. It is a call to refine it. If we can preserve the core virtues, clarity, self-critique, and openness while rooting out its excesses, the Socratic approach becomes less a weapon and more compass. A compass that points not to a final creed, but toward wiser questions, toward a shared map of reality that two or more people can navigate together without surrendering their autonomy. And here rests the paradox that holds the whole story together. The darker use of the method reveals why the light matters. If dialogue is the engine of progress, the safety valve is the capacity to relinquish control when truth requires it. The more we fear being misled, the more we need to practice being misled carefully, temporarily, and with consent so that we can learn to recover our bearings together. The darkest version of the method exposes our need for ethical guardrails, not the failure of reason. So as you watch this, ask yourself, in your own conversations, where do you stand on the line between inquiry and domination? Are you the seeker who lets questions wander, or the guide who tethers them to responsibility? And if you could redesign the practice, what rule would you add to ensure curiosity stays humane, inquisitiveness stays generous, and the love of truth outlasts the thrill of winning a debate? In the end, the dark side isn't the method itself. It's the absence of intention. The antidote is intention sharpened by compassion, by a commitment to mutual growth, and by a willingness to be a student as long as the questions endure. When that becomes your baseline, the Socratic method stops being a trap and becomes a tool not to trap others into a single view, but to free everyone into a more honest, more curious, more resilient way of seeing the world. SFX, Wind Fade 3 if you're listening to this from a quiet space. You can hear the old whisper of a gadfly. Question, but also listen. Push for clarity, but leave space for change. We carry the flame of inquiry not to burn others, but to illuminate ourselves. And perhaps that is the truest gift the method can offer, the reminder that truth is not a trophy won in a contest of wits, but a horizon we approach together with humility, courage, and care. To guard against drift, we can teach the method as a craft of consent. Name the aim, agree on ground rules, rotate who leads, and pause often for reflection. Treat questions as invitations, not verdicts. Let silence breathe before answers. Picture two dancers in a dim ballroom, each move met with care, every step yielding not dominance, but alignment. The measure of a good question isn't the punchline it delivers, but the clarity it leaves in its wake. A true test of maturity is how we handle being wrong, not how loudly we defend our stance. If doubts arise, name them. I may be misunderstanding this, or my goal here is to win, not understand. The paradox is simple. Greater openness requires stricter responsibility. The dark side is a warning light that can save us from harm when we heed it. When dialogue is wielded with care, it becomes a shared ascent, not a contest that estranges. And admitting we could be wrong expands the map, not shrinks it. So step into your next discussion with a compass in hand and a commitment to mutual growth. Ask not only what you think, but why you think it, and for whom. If you keep that question alive, the shadows thin,